And we back. And we back. Alright. This is Mitty D throwing down a night. And we're going to review the Steelers Browns game. This game kind of sucked. Browns beat the Steelers 21-7. I honestly didn't see this coming. Like, the Steelers were on a run. Their defense played great, but just wasn't enough. I honestly thought their offense played terrible. Mason Rudolph 4 interceptions. And I'm so appalled by the amount of concussions in this game. Like, everybody got a concussion. Freaking James Conner, concussion. Mason Rudolph, concussion. Juju Smith-Schuster, concussion. And I think there was a defensive player too, but I honestly forget his name. There were so many. I know the Browns' defense is really good, and they're hard-hitting too, but there's something wrong with the way they tackle, it seems. Because, especially on the one play, the player got blown up. He started bleeding out of his ear, and I asked my friend what it was, because he's a med major, and he said it was a brain lesion, and that doesn't sound good, especially when you bleed out of your ear. I really hope he's okay, because that was a hard hit. Hard enough to knock his helmet off, hard enough to make him bleed. Wow. That guy is going to have to sit out for a long time. And now, let's look at the Steelers' rushing game. Garbage as well. Worse than Mason Rudolph, honestly. Mason Rudolph threw 4 interceptions, but James Conner is not the person he was last year. It may have been because a lot of the NFL was expecting Le'Veon Bell last year, and then they got James Conner. It's a very different play style because Le'Veon's a more patient runner, and James Conner is he hits you right up the middle, and if you tackle him, good, but if you don't tackle him, then you're not going to have a second shot because he's not going to dance like Le'Veon Bell does. And just the loss of Ben Roethlisberger, too, hurts the running game immensely. Like, Mason Rudolph, I thought he was going to be a good quarterback, but he is not at all what I thought he was. And we'll get to the fight at the end of this video. If you want to see my reaction from it, I thought it was awesome. I loved the fight. Actually, I hated it. Bad idea. Bad for the NFL. But anyways, now we'll look at the Browns. The Browns really didn't play a good game either. The Steelers' defense is legit. They played really well. I can't believe they didn't intercept Baker Mayfield. Like, he's thrown interceptions left and right all year. And he didn't throw any of this game. I'm so impressed. Like, just by that alone. I don't care that he didn't throw over 200 yards. Or, like, he really used his running ability to prolong plays. And I think it's very useful. He needs to do that more, and he wasn't doing it in the beginning of the year because he would get sacked because his offensive line doesn't look too good. That's something they could probably focus on in the draft, I think. It's very necessary for them. But now let's look at Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. They're 2 main running backs. I really liked how they played. They were very consistent, and they did what they needed to do. Kareem Hunt really worked out well in the passing game. He had 6 catches, just like Odell Beckham. Crazy that they have the same amount of catches in a game. Odell Beckham is such a disappointment this year. My friend has him on his fantasy team, and he's like, I don't want him anymore. I mean, it's appalling at what he has failed to do this year. It really begs the question of, is Eli Manning better than Baker Mayfield? But that's a question for another day. Alright? I'm not going to answer that. I don't have enough brain cells to answer that. I hope that comes up in like one of the NFL Live segments or something. I think that would be hilarious. Because Odell Beckham kind of thrived in New York. He played well, even in his last season in New York. I was still impressed with him. He was still contributing. But this season, he looks lost. When they throw him the ball, He just decides he either decides to go for it or not to go for it. And that's terrible. You should always go for the ball, no matter what. It's so lazy of him to do this. I really wouldn't want him on my team, which is saying something because he's so talented. And I know in the beginning of the season, like in the preseason, all the analysts were saying, "Oh, he's one of the top 5-3 best receiver in the league." There's no way he's right there now. And this year's kind of crazy with all the injuries and the inconsistency of top receivers nowadays. But he doesn't look like he's on a top level with Julio or Michael Thomas and many others. So when I was watching the game, it was on and off until the fight at the end of the game. This made the game for me because it was like a team would go 5 plays and then throw an interception, and the other team would get a 3 and out, and then the other team would throw an interception again. It was really bad. Good defense, really bad offense because Baker Mayfield is not the quarterback we thought he was. And obviously the Steelers are just in shambles right now. They have backup everything. They're going to have backup everything except for their offensive line, who protected Mason Rudolph like a boss. But I'm going to analyze the fight because that's what everyone cares about. So the part that most people are missing about this fight is the fact that Myles Garrett hit Mason Rudolph late. Mason Rudolph was going to throw the ball. He threw the ball, and then Myles Garrett, he makes contact with Mason Rudolph and wraps him up, and this would have been okay. But Myles Garrett decides to keep on driving, and he throws Mason Rudolph to the ground after the play is over. I'm pretty sure the whistles were even called by this point because I don't even think the receiver caught the ball. So it was a late hit, first of all, because by the rule standards, you can't wrap a quarterback up and fall on them, take him to the ground at the end of the play, especially when the play is over. Penalty they missed. Second, Mason Rudolph decides it's a good idea to push Myles Garrett's helmet away. One of the strongest men in the NFL. He decides to pick a fight with Myles Garrett. He pushes his helmet away, and then Myles Garrett didn't like that because he was in a very uncomfortable position. His nose was squenched. His ears were hurting. It hurts to take a helmet off. And especially nowadays, because they're so anal about concussions, they make the helmets very tight so that it's a good fit for the player's head. And so Myles Garrett then decides to grab Mason Rudolph's helmet, and he rips it off like a freaking man because he's a big boy. And Mason was not liking this. And you know who else wasn't liking this? His offensive lineman. The offensive line comes to save Mason Rudolph. I love the move by the offensive line. I love when they protect their quarterback. It's something every offensive line should do. It should almost be a part of the job when they come. The quarterback takes him out to dinner, buys him dinner, and they protect him for the rest of his life, like the Secret Service. And so when Myles Garrett rips Mason Rudolph's helmet, the offensive line decides to come in because they were already standing up by this point, and they start pressing up on Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett doesn't like this, and Mason Rudolph is yelling at Myles Garrett in the background, and he's just I don't know what he's even saying. He can't be saying anything necessary. And what Myles Garrett does is he bops him in the head with his helmet, and that probably hurt really bad. I don't know if it had any cushioning on it, but how strong Myles Garrett is, the amount of force it takes for him to go from here, putting a lot of force into slamming a helmet on someone's head, must hurt so much. I feel really bad for Mason Rudolph. I can't believe he didn't react in a more severe way. But anyways, after that, the offensive line shuts Myles Garrett down. One guy falls on top of him and starts punching him in the helmet, and then the other offensive lineman, Pouncey, I think it is, and he starts kicking Myles Garrett. What a dumb play by both teams. Ridiculous. They're talking about it on the air, and a bunch of players are going to get suspensions. Probably like 3 games for the Steelers offensive lineman, and the rest of the season for Myles Garrett because of the fact that he made a decision to whip Mason Rudolph's helmet at Mason Rudolph's head. What a genius idea. He literally, a lot of players punch other players' helmets. Myles Garrett, he goes right for the helmet, but he doesn't punch it. He takes it off. He makes you nude and scared and afraid. And he whops him with it. What a ridiculous and just inconsiderate response to a game that was already over. It was so sad to see that happen. I don't like Myles Garrett necessarily after this, and I never really liked him to begin with, but he actually is playing really well this year, and the Browns needed him, especially if they were going to make a playoff push. I'm really disappointed because I thought the Browns were going to make the playoffs this year, and now they might lose 2 of their defensive players that contribute so much. Like, he kind of cost them the season because the offense wasn't playing very well except for Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. And Jarvis Landry, honestly. Jarvis Landry is the best receiver on that offense, which is crazy because it has OBJ on it. Those are my thoughts on the game. It was a really bad game and a really exciting final. The last 13 seconds of the game that this happened, they could have just all walked away, but Myles Garrett decides to swing Thor's hammer on Mason Rudolph's head. I would love to know what he's thinking. I want to see Freddie Kitchens yell at him because I think that would be awesome. If only Antonio Brown could get that on camera. All right, thank you so much, and I hope you have a good night. See you next time on Midi D at night.